Welcome to the Ride This Out podcast, where we talk about how to improve your mental health and strengthen your connection to nature and your community, all through one simple solution: the bicycle. My name is Zach Golding, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and mental health therapist. I'll be your host as we discuss the power of pedaling. All right, welcome into this week's session. I talk with Daniel Hurd. Dan talks about biking the lower 48 states in an effort of raising awareness for suicide prevention. Dan shares his own journey with his mental health. And on that note, the topic of suicide is discussed in this episode, so a little bit of a trigger warning. Although there are no explicit details given, the topic is discussed, and I think it's important to have this discussion. Many of us, whether we ourselves are impacted by some of these thoughts, or we know somebody personally who struggles with these thoughts, or maybe we know somebody who has passed away as a result of suicide. It affects many people around us. And so being able to discuss this and talk about it and raise awareness and also help other people around us. And I love how Dan, of course, is using the bicycle to spread that message. And so I'm going to put some links in the show notes of all the great things that Dan is doing. Also, there's a national hotline out there. It's 988. Just think of 911. The hotline was recently changed to have a uniform number across the whole United States of America, 988. So if you have any questions or other concerns or anything like that, please reach out to me or reach out to someone around you. And if you know somebody, again, who might be struggling with some of these things, reach out to them. Be that resource, be that support for them, help point them in the right direction. And with that, enjoy this week's session with Dan. All right, Dan, thanks for joining me on the podcast today. If you could just start off by introducing yourself, who you are, where you're from, just all those good things. So go ahead.
Yeah, Zach, thanks for having me. I really appreciate that. My name is Daniel Hurd. I am known as Ride with danusa, and I'm the founder and spokesperson for the One Pedal at a Time movement, also known as OPAT movement. And on social media, it's OPAATM. But my biggest thing that I'm probably known for is that I bicycled the lower 48 states for suicide prevention.
Yeah, I saw that. When was that, Dan? How long ago did you do that? You biked all 48 states?
So I did that from 2018 to 2021, with a few obstacles in between. But yeah, I did that. I did about 22,000 miles over the course of it ended up being about 3 years, 7 months, and 6 days.
Wow, that's super impressive. I'm curious, out of all the lower 48, which one was I guess most beautiful or memorable? Like I'm sure every state has its pros and cons, but what were some of the ones that stuck out to you?
So definitely, I live in Colorado now. I'm originally from Massachusetts. I tell everybody I moved to my favorite state. So Colorado is pretty amazing. I loved it. Before I even bicycled here, I had come here when I was in the military in California, and I'd come here on the weekends to visit people that I served with. So I already kind of had some familiarity with it,
Nice.
but it was it it wasn't my number one spot until after I got hit by a car on my bicycle journey. Um, and then that kind of influenced it more because my body doesn't like humidity anymore.
Yeah.
So, but before that, I really loved Arkansas. I didn't know I would love it. I got there, and the communities that I went through were amazing. They supported my journey and giving me places to stay. And I used the warm showers a lot of times, but um, I don't at the time. I don't think there was a lot of warm showers like hosts unless you were in Northwest Arkansas.
Nice.
um, so like a lot of it was just kind of see people. There's I started a nonprofit right before I got to that area, so I saw this great opportunity for a starting nonprofit to reach these large corporations that are based out of that area. And then the mountain biking and the biking in general was really growing then, and that is huge now. So um, it's it was definitely something that I really liked there. And I also loved Utah. Actually, my first time on a mountain bike was in Utah.
Nice. Awesome. Where'd you go mountain biking in Utah at?
I went to Moab. I was on my bicycle journey, and I met another guy that he's actually on his third continent right now. He's in South America. He met with me on his course of doing the lower 48, and then went to Alaska. So he did 49 states. And then he did Europe last year. Now he's in South America. But his whole goal was to go around the world, and the pandemic happened. So he had to kind of now break it up. But so we had a few days in Moab, and we ended up meeting some other people there that were going for a mountain bike trip. And so we both actually rented mountain bikes and joined them. And it was my first time on a full suspension mountain bike on like a real trail, and we did the whole enchilada.
No. First first time mountain biking and you did that trail?
Yeah, but I do have experience on bikes. As a kid, at like around 14 years old, I went from riding bicycles to racing and riding dirt bikes. So I
Okay.
have a little bit of experience with suspension and riding in that type of environment. It just went from having a motor do all the work to me actually pedaling it. And thankfully, the whole enchilada, it's 35 miles, but it's a lot of downhill, I would say.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's not recommended as your first trail for sure.
But hey, yeah, if you can survive that, man, you can do anything. That's impressive. Yeah, so talk to me about how'd you get into biking? How'd you start, the one pedal at a time movement? Yeah, how'd you get into all that?
Uh, so I had a friend that in 2017 he got me on a bicycle, but for about 5 years he tried to get me on a bike. His name's Sean Carr, and he is the friend that changed my life. Even if he doesn't like to take credit for it, he gave me the tool. And but he tried to get me and anybody really on a bicycle. And he was in his 30s. He's like 9 years older than me, and the rest of my friends that we hung out with. And we were at that age where we did not want to ride bicycles because kids rode bikes. I think I saw in your bio, like as soon as you get to a certain age, you kind of give up those childish things because now you're an adult. You can go further with a car or on a motorcycle, which was in my case. And so this friend, he would try to get me on, and we would joke around it at some point. It was years down the road. I'd be like, "Yeah, man, I'll see you there on my bike," and I'd ride my motorcycle to this event and go hang out for a few hours, and I'd get back on my motorcycle to go home, and I'd see him still biking there, and I'd be like, "How's that fun?" Uh, so for fast forward a little bit, I had unfortunately just got out of the hospital for my third suicide attempt, and I was in that motion of telling everybody I was good, but deep down, I was already trying to plan my fourth. And he came up to me one day at work, and he was like, "Hey, man, we're going for a bike ride." And it wasn't really any different of the way he said it, but instead of saying, "Hey, do you want to go for a ride with me?" It was like, "Hey, we're gonna go for a bike ride." So it was more of a direct way. And for me, I used it as a um, alternative reason. I was like, "Man, this guy really enjoys hanging out with me. I should spend time with him before I try again." And then two, I was like, well, maybe I'll see somewhere I can do this without being seen by other people because I'll be going slower. So the first bike ride was not for the right reasons, but I got out there and I pedaled, and we ended up doing 20 miles. And I was at the time just about 250 pounds.
Wow. What are you at now?
Right now, uh, I rode a lot this past weekend, so I'm probably at like 165.
Oh my goodness.
But I fluctuate between 165 and 175 now, and it really depends on how committed I am to staying on my routine. For me, I fast in the mornings and usually don't eat until after lunchtime. So around this time of day of noon, I try to eat, and then yeah, and then I try to limit myself to 2 meals because I notice if I eat more than two real meals and maybe I have a couple snacks throughout it, um, no matter how much I bike, I end up typically trying to like gain weight. So,
Yeah.
but pretty much I can eat anything otherwise.
So you're on this ride for 20 miles. You're a lot, your weight is a lot higher than it is now for sure. And then like, what made you want to get on the bike right out
Again,
after that, right? Yeah, the next time.
so honestly, that first bike ride, it wasn't the changing point for me. It was but I did realize that I didn't think about wanting to kill myself or the thoughts of like planning suicide or anything like that while we were on the bike ride. Those feelings came back as soon as we got back, but like in those couple, it ended up being probably 3 or 4 hours because we took breaks and stuff. But in those 20 miles, I didn't think about it, and so a few days later, and I'm on a small bike for myself. My friend Sean, he's a little bit smaller than me, so he had a small frame bike. Um, I tried to ride that bike after my journey, and I honestly do not know how I rode that comfortably, but I'm glad he had it. um, but yeah, so um, it just got to a point where I really wanted to keep going with him. It was kind of like a cool change of pace for me. We went with a couple other friends as well, and it was the third bike ride we did. We ended up trying to go for a night bike ride to go visit some friends in the national park nearby, or the state park, and they were all asleep by the time we got there, and we weren't ready to go to bed. We had so much adrenaline kicking into us, and so we kept riding, and we ended up going to Cape Cod in Massachusetts, and we rode 90 miles or something like that that night, and it was torturous. I'm not gonna lie, it was so hard. Um, my friends kept trying to keep me going, like just one more mile, one more block, one more. We ended up falling asleep a couple times, but it was that ride on the way home because my friend was that he had the mentality of every pedal out, it's a pedal back. Um, and so two of them decided to get rides home, and I was in the military, and for me, I was on somebody else's equipment, and I wasn't gonna leave them behind. So I told them, I was like, listen, I'll go with you, I'll ride with you, but like you gotta wait for me pretty much. But that friend Sean, he got tired of hearing me about halfway through the ride. I started complaining about all the miles we had done and what we still had left. So I was really thinking about the past and the future, not really enjoying the moment. And he turns around, and if you know anybody from Massachusetts, or if you think about movies in Massachusetts, we swear a lot. They swear a lot. So he turns around, and in the nicest way I can say it, he says, "It's one pedal at a time, man. It's left, right, left, right." With a lot more Massachusetts in there. and and it, I almost got really offended, to be honest. Like I was like drawn back by how energetic he was about it. And so I literally bunkered down, I got quiet, and I just started the military came into my head. And before we knew it, we did I think it was 188 miles for the whole weekend, and we made it home. I got super cocky and just uh, felt really confident in myself because I was at that point probably losing a couple pounds, but I was still probably 240 pounds, and just felt like I was on top of the world. And then I realized that the phrase he said, "the one pedal at a time," um, really stuck with me. Not just for that ride because it did really well on that, but it carried over to my daily life. I, I'm a recovering alcoholic and drug addict. I've been 11 years for alcohol and 7+ years for drugs. I still like cannabis for its uses, but for me, it's it really kind of helped me get through a lot of it's like so much stuff on a bicycle that I never thought about. And that phrase, like I said, that one pedal at a time. You hear one day at a time for AA and NA and stuff like that. And one moment, it broke it down to a small amount of time for me. And um, so mentally and physically, it changed my life. That phrase and the bicycle.
Yeah, yeah, I think we've all heard that phrase, one day at a time, and just taking it one moment, moment to moment. And yeah, that one pedal at a time, that's a good way to kind of think about it. And yeah, congrats on the sobriety, man, the determination that takes. That's incredible. And so like you're thinking about this, all right, one pedal at a time, you're feeling on top of the world, you just rode a whole bunch of miles. That's impressive. You put on some serious mileage. And then yeah, at what point, what is it like, all right, I want to get this out to other people. I want to promote it. I want to help others.
Yeah, so it was actually July of 2017 when we did our bicycle ride, and it was probably a few weeks later. I was itching to get on a bike. I personally think I became addicted to cycling. It was like something that I needed to do, and I didn't own a bike, so my buddy only let me ride his if he was riding. And so I ended up getting my own bike and started riding around town and going to different counties in the state. And that friend a month later was like, "Man, when I was your age, I wanted a bicycle across the country." And 2 days before that, I was in therapy and I was talking to my therapist about um, my time in the military and how I hadn't seen the people I was served with since I got out. And he's like, "Man, it sounds like you should visit some of these people." And so when my friend talked about it a few days later, it was like light bulbs went off, fireworks, whatever you want to call it. And I decided I wanted to bike to visit the people I served with. So I started mapping them out. Before I knew it, I had mapped out the lower 48 states for me to ride. So 8 months later, I left on that. Um, when I initially started that, it was just for myself. I wasn't trying to go out there to help other people. I was trying to figure out my own life and figure out what my per se purpose was. Um, so my purpose when I started my journey was for suicide prevention for a different organization. But also Bikes Not Bombs, clean water organizations, and just like child abuse and different, like pretty much I was all over the place. And so I met a guy on my journey when I started, and I'll never forget the interaction because he was a middle-aged guy, but he kept asking why. Like he knew what I was saying wasn't like the actual like concrete answer, and that's what he wanted me to say and like find my purpose. So he just kept asking why, and it got to a point where I was like, I'm riding because I tried to kill myself, and he says, well, it sounds like you're riding for suicide prevention. That's what you should talk about.
Mm.
So as I rode and I started getting more comfortable sharing my story about my own struggles with military, childhood traumas, financial struggles, I started realizing the one-on-one conversations. People like, oh, I struggle with that, or oh, I know somebody that else is struggling with that. Maybe I should check on them. And um, I finished my year of 2018. I got to Mobile, Alabama, into the beginning of 2019, and a family that I was staying with, helped me start my nonprofit, the One Pedal at a Time movement. Um, and that's when I started doing speeches and kind of get more into like really promoting it as a thing itself. So, um, and since then, I've been very fortunate. I've personally done over 100 suicide interventions and kind of encourage other people to become part of making suicide safe for communities through training organizations that I work with, which is Living Works. And there's a lot of resources on our website, the one pedal opatmovement.com, that will share like different categories of people that are struggling. So if you don't feel like you fit into this category, there's different groups and resources that are available for anybody and everybody. And we're always growing that. So if people come across and they're like, hey, I know this organization that you guys don't have on there, they can email us so we can review it and add it to it. So it's something that we encourage other people to be part of, because it's not just the person that is struggling's commitment, but it's the people around them to help see the signs and be part of growing it is what we're trying to do now.
Yeah, and I was checking out your website. You got some great stuff, some great resources on there as far as, yeah, like the trainings and, just talking about it. And that's, one of the things that I've always been trained to do as well as a mental health professional. And that's one thing that we talk with a lot of people about is actually talking about it, right? A lot of times we don't want to talk about it. We shy away from it. But when we ask specifically, like, you know, are you having thoughts of hurting yourself? Are you having thoughts of not wanting to be alive? And then you can open up that conversation with whoever. But yeah, that's, through your different experiences and, yeah, all the interventions and different things that you've experienced. What advice would you give to maybe like a family member or a friend that, if they come to you and they say, hey, I know somebody who's struggling with suicidal thoughts, or I know somebody who's, struggling to stay alive. What advice would you give to that person to then tell that person? Does that make sense? Like, as far as like helping them out?
Did I lose you?
No, yeah, you're good. You still there, Dan?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So
What was your question?
sorry. Yeah. What advice would you give to somebody, if they came to you and they said, I know somebody who's struggling with suicidal thoughts? Where would you direct them, or what kind of stuff would you, tell them?
So at baseline, I actually had a conversation from a friend of mine that I met in California yesterday that is concerned about a ex of theirs. A lot of it is, if you aren't for sure know if they're in crisis, but you have concerns that they may be, just kind of, you know, being comfortable to ask those questions, like we've already mentioned. Are you thinking about harming yourself, others, or even going to the next step of, are you thinking or have a plan for thoughts of killing yourself or suicide? Um, but then also taking it to the next level is being part of their commitment. So a lot of times if someone comes to us or if we want to engage somebody, we struggle with that because we're not the professional, we're not the therapist like you, Zach, that are qualified to be that person to listen at all times. But in reality, we all have the ability. My last name's Hurd. I tell everybody it's time to be heard. I think I used to hate my last name, but I embrace it now for the fact that I think I've been given a purpose to listen to people. And I may not always have the answer, I may not have the qualifications to be per se a therapist, but um, I think I can be a person of listening ability, just to not be judgment, just listen judgment free and just be there for somebody. And I think that's what we all are capable of. And I think going through these trainings on living works through my organization, start.opat movement.com, it gives you the practice in different scenarios on how to engage people properly. But then also being part of it is having, you don't have to per se hold someone's hand, but being their guide to get to them to the next guide, because we can't be the whole guide for the whole journey all the time. But if we can get them to the next one, where if I can get somebody to use Zach, where they're comfortable with you and set up with appointments and set up with a different form of continued care, then my guide is done and pretty much it's on to the next person. That's the way I look at it. Because otherwise, when I first started doing this, I tried to be wrapped up so tight that uh, you almost consume into their lives, and you feel obligated to stay part of it to some degree, but it almost is bad for your mental health if you go too far. So you got to have that balance for yourself and for them.
Yeah, that's a great point. Is, um, setting that boundary, setting that limit, right? But also still being there and caring and supporting, and helping them identify, yeah, other people as well to talk to and other professionals. So yeah, it's great stuff, man. That's awesome. So as you've been biking, across the country and doing all these things, you kind of mentioned a little bit as far as like the struggles and different things that you've encountered. And I watched the video of you on YouTube of, I mean, you've been hit by a car multiple times, Dan. Like, why are you still riding a bike? What's going on, man?
Yeah, you're right. So especially that video that you're talking about. Trent Seeger did a great video of me, and we actually hope that we get to do a follow up pretty soon. So I love cycling so much that I tell people I'm addicted to it. I really am, but it's a good addiction. I don't just ride on bikes that are on the road anymore. I actually try my best to avoid cars, but I also do pedicabing, if you know what that is, bicycle taxis.
Okay, that's
So I'm
awesome.
out in the roads.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
So
out there.
you do that in Colorado where you're at now?
Yeah, so I'm in the Denver area, so I do that for fun and actually mostly a lot in the winter just to kind of keep my fitness up and ready for the spring and summer and kind of the best way to stay active is just to keep doing it. So I just dress up in more layers and I go out there and try to make a little bit of money as I do the thing I love the most.
Yeah, then no better way to get paid to do something you love to do, right? Riding around. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I do that, and I love it. So it's great.
That's so cool. So with yeah, with your organization, with everything else you got going on, any other, big goals or big plans that you're shooting for or wanting to do?
So I'm always trying to find different activities to get into for like bike adventures. I'm always reaching out to my social media. I do a lot on Instagram and YouTube. I'm trying to really grow my YouTube right now. I've been hanging out with Ryan Van Duzer. He lives pretty close to me, and it's been a huge influence on me growing my video content. Um, and he's also inspired me to kind of to get into, per se, smaller adventures. That my bicycle journey was 3.5 years, and most of my other journeys are like riding across Iowa and stuff like that for Ragbri. So um, I want to try to get more into like some bike packing and off completely roads or at least gravel style stuff. So I'm looking into doing something for New Mexico here in February. And then I'm kind of on the fence. I'm actually going to talk to Trent and try to either decide on if we can get together to go maybe to California or Texas or Florida, try to avoid some of this cold weather.
That's smart. That's smart. I like it. Um, yeah, I like the idea of, kind of some of those, like you say, the mini adventures, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that would probably love to bike all 48 states, but yeah, just being able to do it, realistically,
It's
maybe not.
it's difficult. It's
Yeah,
difficult. And
yeah.
especially as so something I didn't mention is for my journey, uh, for especially for the viewer, for the listeners, is like I did this whole thing with no savings. It wasn't like I was a trust fund baby or I had a bunch of money saved up. I just was very fortunate. I didn't have a family. I don't have kids. Um, I just got out of trying to end my life, so I wasn't paying my bills at the time. So I didn't really have any financial obligations, other than like having a cell phone so I could document it. Um, so anything is possible, but yes, it is definitely a challenge if you want to properly plan
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And so, yeah, as you haven't setting all these new goals and doing some things on the bike. I love how you say that, and you're not the only person that said that on this podcast that they felt like they've become addicted to cycling, right? Like, as far as it's saved your life essentially, right? But when you just get on and ride, what does it do for you? Like, just an everyday, just kind of jump on the bike and ride around. What are some of those things that it helps you out with?
it. Yeah. So for me, a lot of it is the it's like so I don't like taking the pharmaceutical medications to keep myself mellow or happy or any of that stuff. So cycling does that for me. If I notice if I don't get on my bike after like a week or two, if I take that long of a break, which I try to avoid mostly, but if I take that time off, I notice my endorphins are going down. I'm more depressed. I'm more edgy. I'm um, more defensive because I feel like everybody's against me type feeling. And cycling literally is that opportunity for me to do a lot of the self-reflection and the healing that I need for my past situations, or even if I have to process something. Um, it's literally just my Zen time. That's what I call it. I tell everybody it's my Zen activity. It's the moments where I can just be myself, or be an entertainer. I could be anything I want while I'm on my bicycle. That's the best part.
Yeah, and speaking of, I love that, man. Absolutely, the self-reflection, all that stuff. But the entertaining piece, I've seen you surfing on your bike. You looking like Teen Wolf out there. What's going on? What's going on?
Yeah, so something I picked up doing about a year and a half ago. I ride with a group here in Denver called the 303 Street Kid Crew. I call them kids, but they're all like in their 20s, and some of them are in their 30s like me. But they're a wheelie group, and they do all the crazy stuff. And I saw a guy standing on top of his bike surfing, and I was like, I'm not good at wheeling because my knees from my accident, but I can do that, I think. And I learned it in a week. And I got really good at it. I think I'm pretty good at it compared to a lot of people. But I use that in a lot of the balancing tricks now to kind of draw people's attention to my signs that I carry a lot of times on my bikes um, for my goal, my mission, my purpose is uh, to make people smile, and that's one of the things that's on almost every bike that I own is I have a sign that says make a stranger smile, be the change, and then it has all the information for suicide prevention and from the organization that I got that sign from, which is the PMA Bike Rides out of Philly. But that sign is my purpose in life. That's what I tell people. My goal is to make people smile, whether they're a stranger or not, because in reality, even ourselves are strangers because we're learning about ourselves every day. So um, if you can make yourself smile, then you made a stranger smile. That's the way I look at it. So um, having a simplicity of a purpose like that makes my life happy and easy to go by. But the surfing is just an outlet for me to share that with people. I also love doing the tricks. I'll do it with nobody around, but more often than not, it's to catch somebody else's eye. I've had people where they've come up to me. They're not even cyclists, but they were having a really bad day, maybe on the verge of thinking about thoughts of suicide, or even potentially had a plan. And they would come up to me and they'd be like, "Man, just seeing somebody do that just gave me so much life and knowing that there's anything's possible." So that's another reason why I do it. I find things that people uh, connect to, and I find that it works. So I keep it going so that I can hopefully connect to more people. But yeah, the balancing is it's a lot of fun, and I'm pretty good at it now to the point where um, I do it on any bike I ride.
I love it. Yeah, no, you are good at it. Absolutely. When I watch your videos, I'm blown away. I'm like, wait, how can someone and you're like carving, it looks like you're on a snowboard almost, just back and forth. It's impressive, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm actually, it's funny because a lot of people are like, oh, it's probably easier on fat tires. So I have a lot of bikes, but now that I'm in a permanent place, um, but my best bike is my Priority fixed gear bike that I have. Priority is a bicycle company out of New York, if you've heard of them, that make belt drive bicycles.
Yeah. They did they send you a bike or they had something? I thought I saw that on there that you did some
Oh,
kind
you
of
were cut.
suicide awareness, right, with them?
Say that again?
Did you do some kind of like suicide awareness with Priority Bicycles, or did they have a bike for that? I saw one that you had posted about.
Yeah, so they sent me that bicycle. Unfortunately, it got stolen 3 days after I got it from them. I was pretty sad
No,
about it.
dang it.
Yeah, of all my bikes to get stolen, they stole that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, they sent me that one. It wasn't a collaboration with my organization, even though it was a perfect collaboration to do with them. But it was for another for Lifeline, which is the 988 organization.
Yeah.
Um, and but the goal was to kind of just be, I don't care if people support my organization. The goal is to get them to support suicide prevention. So if they support that, that's awesome. That's why I love the fact that they were thought of me even to give me that bike and be part of that support. So Priority is a great company. I've been really grateful to be part of their team since this year, since July of 2023.
Oh, heck yeah.
In some form. I'm not paid by them or anything like that, but
Yeah.
I hang out with Ryan Van Duzer, which is a great member of their team, so that
Nice.
helps.
Heck yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, I love your motto, your philosophy there, just, spreading smiles. Smiles are definitely contagious, and it's always one of those things. You make yourself happy, make other people around you happy. You never know the ripple effect that it can have on anybody at any particular day with their struggles, and the doing it by bicycle. There's no better way for that. So keep up all you do, Dan. You're doing awesome stuff, man, and it's been fun to follow you. Where can people find your stuff? Where can people link up or have any information about what you're doing?
Yeah, so they can definitely check out ridewithdanusa.com. They can also check me out on Facebook, Instagram at the same handle at ridewithdanusa, and on YouTube, the same handle as well. They can check out my nonprofit at opaatmovement.com. Also check out opaatmovement.com/ there underscore is the underscore help for anybody that is in crisis, or even if you want to learn more about how to be involved in anybody that you may know. And then also, um, let's see, I think that's it actually. Yeah, for the most part. And everything else will be in the description that I missed.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll definitely link up on those, and yeah, Dan. Again, I appreciate you being on the show and sharing your story. I know that it's inspired me, and I know that it will inspire other people to for themselves as well, but also to reach out and help other people around them. So great stuff, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely appreciate it, Zach, and I look forward to hearing more from everybody else that you put on.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thanks, Dan. Have a great day, and we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll see you.
Bye.